there literally is nothing actual like biological or developmental about love languages in our brains. There's been research to try to see if that is the case. And so far, completely inconclusive.
I'm Amy.
I'm April.
Certified sex educators, sexperts of the year, and best-selling authors.
And we're on a mission to help you have more spicy, connected, and amazing shameless sex. Welcome to the Shameless Sex Revolution.
We're so close, it's like we have our own language. We're making sex and relationships shameless.
To learn more, go to shamelesssex.com.
And for 15% off some of our favorite sex toys, use code SHAMELESSSEX at purepleasureshop.com.
You are listening to a pleasure podcast. For more from our sex podcast collective, visit pleasurepodcasts.com.
Well, hello, everyone.
Hey, everybody.
Happy early September.
Sextember?
Sextember. Shameless Sextember. Oh.
Is that a thing? We tried
it is. We're making it a thing.
I think it needs to be a thing.
It is a thing now. Officially, it's a thing. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's happening. I think we'll talk about it sometime, maybe in this episode or in other ones, because every month deserves to be celebrated. Sexuality deserves to be celebrated. So why not Shameless Sextember?
I love it. And this is a great episode for the Shameless Sextemberness. You're just... Temberness. I'm making up words as we go along. You're going to be coming back from Burning Man when this airs.
I know. Hopefully I still have a voice, but that's why we're not scheduling anything.
Yes, we took a break. We learned our lesson from last year.
I was like, hey, everyone. You're like, oh, that hurts actually doing that. I won't
don't
do
do
that.
it. Don't do it.
Yeah, I'm going to stop doing that. This episode is with Hodder-Shipp, and it's about the 18 languages of modern love, which is based on a book that she wrote that is also kind of based on the 5 love languages that was from many, many years ago. And so we discuss all of this in this episode, and what are those love languages, or I guess they're called love languages. And then we also talk about sex ed too. So it's like a combination, because it's her sex ed world that inspired her to write this book and this workbook. And so she runs this fabulous sex ed program twice a year, and you'll hear more about that. It's very exciting.
She's great. And that book, The 5 Love Languages, we talked about before, it needed an update, and 18 love languages, modern love languages, makes way more sense. She goes into some detail. She lists them alphabetically.
And she says that she's currently already writing another book that's an expansion because there's more than 18.
Well, think about how many people are on the planet.
I know.
That first book was written like 1992.
Yes.
By like a really religious human.
Yeah, by someone who just based it on his marriage.
There you go.
Anyways, so stay tuned. It's an awesome, exciting, informative episode. And everyone, if you've been listening to us for the last month, we have announced our couples retreat that is in November 2024 in beautiful Costa Rica. We've had so many requests from people wanting a couples retreat. We have limited capacity. We can only have 6 couples. So go and sign up ASAP. It is a beautiful, beautiful retreat space. You will learn, you will laugh, you will feel connected, you'll feel sexy, and you get to hang out with us for 5 nights.
And we do a nice balance of workshops, playtime, excursion, there's mealtime, relaxation. There's a fun game that I put together.
Erotic photo shoot, which we've never done with couples before. I think it's going to be very fun. And it's not like 10 days. It's 5 nights. Yeah. And then you can, if you want to stay in Costa Rica before or after, go ahead and do that.
Oh, well, let's talk about Kenneth too, the chef that's going to be there. Making
Chef
the
Kenneth.
most fabulous food you've ever eaten.
It's a luxury retreat.
Yes.
So go and check it out, shamelesssex.com, and then you can click the retreat page, and we have all kinds of photos. I think we have a video, and sign up as soon as possible so we can hang out with you in beautiful Costa Rica.
I can't wait.
You ready for a quick sex question?
I am.
Well, it's a little complex, but I think it can be quick-ish.
We'll make it short.
So a few months ago, I had the best orgasm ever, but it was my first time ever having that type of orgasm. It felt like my partner's penis was rubbing up against my belly button from the inside. At first, we were just chilling and watching TV while I straddled him, but then I noticed how amazing the sex was, and the sensation slowly crept up on me. I've tried recreating the position in the whole scenario with him, but no luck. How can I achieve this again? It sounds like this person either had a cervical or a G-spot, G area orgasm, because it's up towards the belly button.
Yeah.
And I think G-spot, G area orgasms are a little more they're easier to replicate, whereas cervical is really difficult. Like I've had cervical orgasms before, and I've tried. Let me try all the same things, and it hasn't worked.
It's like the Holy Grail, where you're just searching for it.
Yeah. Well, now once you're searching, you're in your head. You're not in your body. To have an orgasm like this, you need to just be in your head. I'm sorry, in your body, not your head. You're not thinking like, do I have like the cock in the right place? Am I doing this right? Is it the same as last time? So that's for this person is. I love that you're recreating the position, the whole scenario, but so maybe continue to do that stuff. But the part about like looking for that same thing might be getting in the way of you actually having the same thing. So instead, going back to, yes, recreate all those things because you know they worked before, but also pay attention to like how much sleep did you have? Where were you in your cycle with your hormones? What was your stress level? Like all of those things matter. But then, so like you did before, we were just having sex and it kind of felt a little good. And then I noticed that it felt good. So I kept going. Go back to that. Combine the recreating and then go back to that. I'm just going to pay attention to sensation. Oh, that feels good. Keep doing that. That feels good. And put those together as opposed to I'm looking for the thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's kind of, I'm going to compare it to when and it's not a sexual comparison. I'm going to compare it to when you have this like epic night that's unexpected. You go out and it's just everything is.
Like I'm going to do it again.
Yes, It's in alignment, whether it's you're out for dinner or you're with friends. You can't recreate certain experiences at the snap of a finger, or rainbows, beautiful rainbows, like a double rainbow.
Yeah.
You need the right setting and the certain environment, the right hormonal balance, or who knows.
Yeah.
And if you weren't documenting those things, you could just kind of maybe look at the date or around the time that it happened and try to mimic the same things. It could be so many things.
Yeah, so many things matter.
The yummy food you ate, or something that just like your brain was alive, or
the
you just
smell
felt
of your
alive.
partner that day, like their intensity of their pheromones.
The TV that they watched.
Yeah, who knows? The show that you watched.
Super sexy. So I'm with you though on everything else.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great question. I've had those moments in time too, and get out of your head though about wanting to recreate it, because
you could do all the things that
hard.
work, like the setup of the position and the ambiance and like, okay, my hormones.
Same show.
Yeah, the same show. Watch the same show. Like maybe this will work, but then just focusing on sensations and go from there. And then your brain might be like, wait, it's not happening. Is it going to happen? Just come back to the sensations. It's like a back and forth
That'd
dance.
be such a cool experiment to do with some people like this that had this one specific type of sensation and try to recreate that in a scientific shameless sex laboratory.
Yeah.
To be like, okay, what show
you
were you watching?
Be in your head at all.
Were you watching
in
like
a laboratory.
baking show? And then you're going to do it the same time every way, and let's see how many times it happens. Well, we're going to look for funding for that later.
Yeah, totally. We're fundraising right now if you want to send money to us.
No, not yet.
Please do.
All right. That's cool. That's a cool question.
Yeah, good luck to you in your journey. And I think that if you just stay with the sensations, then anything is possible. And then even when you have the experience, it will be different because it's different from last time, because now is now and then was then. And just be open to it. And I do think that once you master the art of cervical orgasms, it actually can be, which I haven't done yet, but it can be something that you have more insight on how to get there. But you have to have multiple experiences, I think, to understand that.
Yeah. We can call that the double rainbow orgasm.
Ooh, it's a triple rainbow.
Double rainbow. Yeah. Okay. Are you ready for the bio?
Yeah.
Ann Hodder-Shipp, CSE, is an award-winning, multi-certified sex and relationships educator. Ann boasts a unique understanding of age-appropriate sex education, trauma-informed healing, and emotional intelligence. Ann is also the founder of and lead educator at Everyone Deserves Sex Ed. And most recently, Ann released the book, Speaking from the Heart, 18 Languages for Modern Love, a groundbreaking and much needed expansive update to the love language concept. And its accompanying workbook, the Speaking from the Heart Workbook, a practical guide to the modern love languages. To learn more, go to everyonedeservessexed.com.
All right, everyone, it is interview time, and we are here with Ann Hodder-Shipp of, many things, but Everyone Deserves Sex Ed. We'll start with that. Ann holds many titles, has created a lot of magic in the human sexuality field and realm, including a book that is out called Speaking from the Heart, 8 Languages of Modern Love.
18.
Oh, 18. Sorry, I missed 10 of them. 18 Languages of Modern Love. And I've if everyone's heard of the love languages, the 5 love languages, this is an much needed expansion on that, and we'll talk more about why. But we are super excited. You all heard about Anne already a little bit in the intro, in the bio. But Anne, can you please tell our listeners a little bit more about how you got to where you are today in the field of sexuality?
Yeah, well, pretty soon out of journalism school, I immediately moved to Los Angeles and figured or assumed I would be in like the fashion world as an editor of some kind. And then after my first fashion writing job was horrifying, I was like, I need a new job, and very quickly got a job at a magazine that covered the adult industry.
Oh.
And so while I was there, started the sex toy section because they didn't have one. And that's how I met a bunch of sex toy people and really sort of dove into that world, and still very much work with sex toy companies for a bunch of stuff. But that kind of started my trajectory into what eventually became like an accidental entrepreneurial stage of my life, which I'm still in, I suppose. This was back in like 2009. And during that, I was asked to be the editor of a sex blog, sex website for LA Weekly. And so by doing that, people called me and considered me a sex educator. And for sure, I was educating by writing and researching, but I just didn't feel comfortable with that title. And so I was able to go to a really fantastic, very intensive training in 2015. And that's kind of where,
right?
CSE,
yeah. I did CSE in 2008 as well.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what officially sparked the sex education side of things, where I started to, in addition to working with sex toy companies, doing, writing and PR, kind of that stuff, I was working with like teenagers, adult in rehabs, couples, all kinds of really interesting places doing like sex and relationship education. And then just kept doing my own training and professional development while also trying to develop that side of my business. And so, and that's what Everyone Deserves Sex Ed is.
Oh, yeah. I've known you for a long time as well. And I loved when you came out with this, the Everyone Deserves Sex Ed. And this is kind of like, just because the lot of work that you've done around this, and you've helped people in the retail industry. I've noticed with their sex education, which is so needed because folks that are in the pleasure products industry, they're selling lube, they're selling sex toys, they're selling orgasms, right? And hopefully they care about humans on the other side of those orgasms. And there wasn't a solid format for folks out there to get sex education, like trusted inside the industry. People either wanted it for themselves, but I love that companies are bringing you on board to train their folks to be more sex positive. And hopefully retailers eventually will do that as well, and not just the manufacturers. Oh, good. I love that. It's love that.
Pretty cool. Well, as you know, like the two of you have been in the field for a really long time too. And there's just a lot of misinformation or contradictory information because there wasn't, there's no sex ed in general. I know we're going to talk about that, like in schools or when we're young, but especially as adults, and there wasn't any in the industry. So everyone was just doing their best. And unfortunately, while doing their best, there can be some accidental harm that's done. And also just employees of manufacturers or staff at stores, they are not paid enough to do the really hard work that they do anyway. But then on top of that, they're supposed to know how to respond to certain kinds of questions or know how to fully explain where to stick this particular sex toy and where not to. And they can only go by whatever might be on the box or what their sales manager told them. And it's just it's a lot of stress for them. And so I was really potentially annoying with a lot of my clients because in addition to the PR marketing on the manufacturer side, I was always just we can shift this so that it's more accurate or more reflective of how this would maybe really be used. Or what if we, shifted this promo material that you're sending to the store so that it's a little bit more educational, so that the staff can use it and also shoppers can use it to just learn something more. And it's just going to make everybody more money, which is what they needed to care about, understandably. Yeah. And it'll make people, healthier, more connected, feel more confident doing their jobs or more confident using the products themselves. And it's been a long haul, but now, I've had A bunch of different store chains have sent people. We've got distributors sending people to get trained,
awesome.
and a lot of manufacturers, whether it's their sales staff or their marketing staff. So it's clearly, they know it's needed. And fortunately, now it's more on trend to be like informed on the sex and wellness side of things.
I love that. I know that is so important. And thank you for doing that work within the industry. And in terms of what we obviously have talked to you in person a bunch, and having you on the show has been, I think, a long time coming. And you have this book that is awesome and was so needed, because we've talked about the 5 love languages. I've read it a couple of times. You go to therapy, sometimes they recommend the 5 love languages, and it was written a long time ago. It's kind of religious in my eyes. So I wanted to know about what inspired you to write Speaking from the Heart, because that's 18 languages, which makes more sense, of modern love, as it's in conjunction with this 5 love languages. I'm assuming it's this updated, more incredibly in-depth version that speaks to the majority of humans, that 5 languages of love Pavor couldn't cover. So what's missing from that book or formula, and what does this Speaking from the Heart offer?
Yeah, well, there's a lot missing from the original 5, and you're totally right. It does have some religious undertones, sometimes overtones, I guess, depending on who you ask, and specifically evangelical Christianity. And that's not necessarily negative or bad if it were disclosed transparently from the start. So part of it is an ethical thing. I do feel that it's been unethically sold to the masses without disclosing sort of like what its origins or what it's really intended for, and who it's intended for, who it leaves out and why, and who's the scary Chapman guy? Is he really a counselor? No, he's not. That kind of stuff. But regardless, though, the concept has always been useful. And this book, the Speaking from the Heart book, is a total accident among a variety of things in my adult life, interestingly, because I was using the 5 love languages as a concept in my private practice work, but just changing it all the time. And sometimes in real time, I would have to change something when I would notice how something did or didn't land with someone I was working with. And I was like, oh, good to know. Okay, need to change that, need to change this. And after enough years, I had a totally my own essentially concept and idea of what a love language emotions wise like really could be about, and what it could like look and feel like, and started making like a PDF 1-sheet tool for my fellow educators and therapists. And then that just sort of like became this much longer PDF that I started to sell as an ebook, and did not expect it to blow up like it did. And so it's just been kind of expanding from there. And like 18 love languages, or modern love languages is what I call them, is technically like not even enough, because love is so subjective. It's so broad. It's very, very personal and individual. And so obviously 5 categories, they're general to the point of actually not really giving us a lot to work with. And also just so many people were like, well, what if I don't resonate with any of them? What's wrong with me? And there was a lot of just, I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but just sort of treating the 5 love languages like it was this psychological, biological thing that we all have wired in our brains, and not just an idea. There's nothing wrong with ideas, but there literally is nothing actual like biological or developmental about love languages in our brains. There's been research to try to see if that is the case, and so far completely inconclusive. So instead I was like, well, what if we can really take this into a somatic type of activity or exercise, where we first start by just thinking like, what does love actually feel like to me? Like when I love someone or something, what does that feel like? Excitement, joy, comfort, safety, anxiousness, who knows? Probably a lot of different feelings at once. And then flip it, like, what does it feel like to me when I feel loved? Like, what is that actual feeling? What are the body sensations? Because I would ask people, like, how do you define love? Or how do you know when you're feeling loved? And everybody would say something different. Of course they would. They're not like, when someone gives me a gift or does an act of service, like nobody says that.
No. I got a nice present.
Like, yeah. So I just realized like a lot of the activities I was doing in the group work I was doing, or some of the one-on-one stuff, I could like make them into actual just worksheets that people could either buy in a workbook, which exists now, or a therapist can buy the workbook and just like use specific worksheets and activities for people. And then they could shift out of utilizing something like the 5 love languages that is, even if it wasn't sort of what I feel is secret Christian propaganda that's homophobic and, cisphobic and misogynist and et cetera. That just offers a much more expansive, human reflected type of explanation of how to figure out how to navigate all kinds of relationships, not just the romantic ones.
Yeah.
And it's not 2,000 pages, by the way. I have it up.
Yeah.
So don't get scared, everyone. We're like, okay, how many pages is this going to be if there's 18? So it's like a reasonable size book. It's not a weapon.
It's short. I mean, not everyone's looking at this, but
everyone go to YouTube, y'all. Go to YouTube.
It's intentionally short and concise, and not everybody loves that. They want a deep dive, and that will exist. I'm writing it now, but I don't want to intellectualize this any more than the rest of us already have.
Totally.
So it's really just each modern love language has a one page explanation of just kind of what this is, what it could look like, why it matters, and then what really makes this different on an accessibility side of things. Each modern love language, instead of having pages of explanation, there's a page of what this can look like. And I use little illustrations to show examples of what it could be. And then a page of what it's not. And so little illustrations show examples of don't get me wrong, don't get this twisted. This is not what this one means. Yeah. So if you're doing any of this shit, that's something to look at for yourself for sure. And then flip to the page of examples. And then you can maybe practice those instead if you're trying to connect more with that particular modern love language.
Yeah, I love that. I'm actually currently in therapy looking at how I feel love or when I don't feel loved, specifically romantic relationships. And there's this thing that I'm looking at when I don't feel love, it's when it's missing touch, but it's also this feeling but it's going deeper because 5 love languages will be oh, touch is your primary love language. That is actually true for me, but now we're looking deeper. It's there's a layer of not feeling liked, and there's in this in which is that acceptance, is that belonging, is that abandonment? There's so many layers there, and I won't go too deep into that, everyone. Hey, podcast fam. If you're anything like us, you're probably looking for ways to enhance your sexual experiences. Well, I recently tried VB Health's Soaking Wet formula, a supplement for vaginal hydration and health made by medical doctors, which not only helps with your pussy's pH balance, but can also help you get soaking wet. But there's more. The Load Boost formula is made for dudes, and I can tell you firsthand, totally enhanced my partner's orgasm intensity and load. It's got to be those science-backed ingredients.
That's why science is so damn sexy. And VB Health isn't just another supplement company either. Their focus is real results, and there's nothing better than your pussy feeling balanced and soaking wet. And your partner has his load boosted too. That's a win-win. So if you're ready to see for yourself, then visit soakingwet.com and use the code SHAMELESS for 10% off, or click the link in the episode description. That's 10% off when code SHAMELESS is used at soakingwet.com, or click in the link in the episode's description. Chip, how often do people ask us where to find super hot but ethical porn?
All the time.
And the first thing we always say is Erica Lust.
Yep.
Just listen to episode number 376, Porn and Empowering Gangbangs, and you will know why. Erica Lust is an award-winning filmmaker who's all about making sex-positive indie adult films. She creates stories that feel real, with characters you can actually relate to, and with seriously hot sex.
Chip, can we double down on the seriously part of how hot her films are?
As long as you're seriously going to talk about double penetration and me being involved.
Oh, okay.
But not in porn. But not yet.
Okay, so we're going to talk to Erica Lust about this. And we were both so grateful for her work because while mainstream porn can be super hot, it's often missing, let's talk about female pleasure, creative quality, diversity, and ethical production. Erica Lust is totally revolutionizing the way you, that's you, and us watch and think about adult films.
Absolutely. And right now, Erica Lust is offering our listeners 45% off your subscription when you enter the code 45shameless at ericalust.com. Again, that's 45% off some of our favorite super hot ethical porn at ericalust.com. That's Erica with a K, everyone, with code 45shameless. The link is in the episode's description.
And then I do remember when I did Barbara Carellis' Urban Tantra training in 2014, numbers are weird in my brain right now, someone saying the 5 love languages should really be 7 because sexuality should be broken down into 2 instead of the 1 anyways, or maybe it was 3, I'm not sure. But now we have 18 languages of modern love that you're saying isn't just about romantic relationships. So this is a big, broad question, and you don't need to share, unless you want to share all the 18 languages of modern love. But what are some examples of the 18 languages of modern love that are in your book?
Yeah, I mean, I don't require people to like buy the book to know what they are. So I'm totally happy to list them right now in alphabetical order. Like,
yes,
literally,
please. Yes.
I do it all the time.
Order. Oh my God. I love it.
April loves this.
It's not memorized in alphabetical, so don't worry. I'm bringing out my little list. But yeah, I will say like one really important thing about the modern love languages, it is very centered around platonic love, platonic relationships. They apply to sexual and romantic by default, but what's different about especially the physical touch side of things, the physical touch idea has been like sexualized in a way that's then been used in really harmful ways to kind of like push people's boundaries and say, well, sex is my love language. So if you don't have sex with me, if you say no to me, you're revoking love and you're the harmful abuser. And it's really fucked up, obviously. Yeah. And it puts a lot of people, disproportionately heterosexual women, in this position of, I have to do this for him. I have to do this for them or her. It is disproportionately cisgender men weaponizing this idea, but they don't actually realize that there's anything wrong with it because they've had it. It's approved. It's sort of like permitted to use the 5 love languages as a way to try to manipulate partners into behaving in ways that they wouldn't naturally or ordinarily. And it shifts, it like kind of removes this, like, the permission to just say no to not today or maybe later. And so anyway, just really important because it's also then very expansive and representative of, among other things, asexual folks and aromantic folks, because aromantic people don't not feel love. They don't feel romantic love or desire for romantic relationships, you know? And so there was also this feeling of like, well, I don't want to be with an aromantic person or an asexual because then I won't get any love or anything from them. And it's just like, y'all, oh my God, okay, we really need to do some work here.
Wait, tangent. What's considered romance? Isn't that because that's so vast, right? So an aromantic. So if someone that would if I brought them flowers and they were aromantic, they'd be like, I don't want this. I don't.
No. Well, here's the thing. Yeah. So like when we say I love Beyonce or I love my dog, I love my niece, I love my sister, we love them. When we say I love my wife, that we're not all talking about the same kind of love. So if someone is handing someone flowers, like that does not have a romantic connotation to it automatically. It can be, and in definitely heteronormativity type spaces or heteronormative like perceptions of relationships, flowers have often been a thing that a hetero man will give to a hetero woman to prove love of some kind.
But not vice versa, because that's weird, you know?
Right. And we have a lot of hetero men who are like, no, I actually really love flowers, but people make fun of me when I ask about it, so I don't. But we also like give flowers to people who are sad. We give flowers to people to brighten their day. We give flowers to people because we walked by a place that were selling some really beautiful sunflowers. And you were like, fuck yeah, I want to brighten up my room with my roommate. Like, so we're not all proposing marriage or whatever long-term romantic partnership with these people by doing these particular like things that signal love and affection. If there was someone, regardless of their romantic orientation, who was like, oh, fuck flowers, I fucking hate them, they are way too normative for me, or they feel way too romancy, then great. But that's definitely going to be like an individual thing. Just like how some people are like, I don't do anal. I'll do everything else. But like anal, no, I don't love it. Don't love it. And I am not a sex doll for other people. And like, that's individual for them too. But it doesn't mean like anal then is off the table for all people who, you know,
there's a whole category of the anti-anal people. And then the same with asexuality, right? People assume, they don't have sex. They don't have there's no sex drive. And like, that's not what asexuality is.
So aromantic is not a romantic human. It's your anti-romance, right?
Not necessarily anti, but it's really about
the harsh word, but I'm just using it.
I know what you mean. Okay. It's more like when we think about sexual orientation or romantic orientation, it's very based on where are your romancy attraction feelings or your sexual draw to people, if you have any. Where is it drawing you toward? What kinds of people? Is it based on gender? Is it based on other stuff? Do you have those feelings at all? And so for aromantic folks, they either feel none at all or very infrequent or maybe like conditional romantic desire or attraction toward other people, with maybe desire for like a long-term romantic partnership of some kind. Whereas asexual people, they either feel no sexual desire or attraction, like the thing that draws them to people isn't like hubba, I want to like rub genitals together or whatever, or they feel it infrequently or conditionally. But there are a lot of reasons people have sex, and feeling sexual attraction is merely one of hundreds. And so when we think about like, I have sex when I'm bored. I have sex when I'm curious about what this person will be like in bed. I have sex to fall asleep at night. I have sex to feel connected to the other person. When I feel lonely, when I don't want to eat food, I'd rather just have sex with someone. Like there are a lot of things, if people are comfortable enough to be vulnerable and disclose it, a lot of reasons that we fuck other people. And sometimes we don't have any desire to fuck other people, but we might absolutely feel desire to like masturbate all day, or like masturbating before bed is part of my ritual. And it's not because I'm sexually attracted to myself. It's because I want all of the benefits of what an orgasm or what physical touch and that pleasure, oxytocin type of experience gives me. And so hopefully for folks who are listening, it's definitely like a nutshell, quick and dirty explanation about it. But asexual people, lots of asexual people have sex very frequently. And then lots of asexual people not only don't have sex, but they're like, I'm actually so disgusted. I'm absolutely not doing that ever. Not of interest. And all of them are valid, and all of them also have fantastically connected, satisfying relationships. And they're not all polyamorous relationships either. It's totally possible to be monogamous while on the asexual spectrum or on the aromantic spectrum too. So it's just really deeply individual. And so we can't use broad strokes or, sexual term, I suppose, to describe anybody, right? But especially when it comes to asexual aromantic people.
Thank you. I'm not going to interrupt because that was only the A. Shit.
Oh my God, how funny. I know, right?
Like, I'm not going to ask any more questions until the end.
Tangent zone. Okay, here we go. Alphabetical. So we've got accountability, active listening, acts of empathy, affirming communication, bestowing, emotional labor, engaged experiences, intentional time, personal growth, platonic touch, problem solving, providing, shared beliefs, solidarity, teamwork, thoughtful service, undivided attention, and upskilling.
So many questions, but we probably don't have time to talk about all of them.
We could do a whole different episode, right?
Our podcast is, Well,
one of my questions, so with all of these, something came to mind where, if I think of like long-term partnerships where people fall into this zone of feeling love with your partner. And I don't know if this is how they define feeling love, is because I heard intentional time instead. So where does just us, like our love is like we watch Netflix together and like we just kind of coexist, which I think for a lot of people,
not intentional with each other. It's kind of like
it's less intentional, but people I think might still identify that with love, which a lot of people get into that groove. Like we're just kind of like coexisting. Was coexist one of them? Maybe.
Well, I would probably see what's also the way that I use modern love languages and encourage other people to is to see how a lot of it's going to be like multiple representations of love. There will be a lot of overlap because there is no like categorization of an emotional experience. So for example, doing the sort of like separate thing, but together on a couch, I could say, sounds like an intentional time experience. You are literally, this is an intentional time to maybe connect with yourself or just do something for yourself, but also an engaged experience. It's an intentional time that you both know what you're doing here and why, and you're engaged separately but together, because everyone's different. But like when I am with someone that I love on the couch and we're scrolling through our separate, feeds with our headphones on, and something is really fucking funny or so ridiculous, we tap the other person on the shoulder and they're like, oh my God, check this shit out. Yeah. And so it's a really, it's a very engaged experience together, while also not having to make it this like, oh, we're making a date, we're going to go someplace, we're going to spend money here, which is what a lot of people think or associate understandably with something like an active service or whatever. I don't even remember what all the
quality time.
Quality time deal. Yeah. And so some people are like, well, I'm doing all this quality time. Like, you should be, why aren't you feeling loved? What's wrong with you? I'm doing all the things and checking off the boxes. And it's like, well, was it intentional? Is everyone on the same page here about how this time is being used?
Mm-hmm.
Is it actually something this person likes and wants?
That's so
Were you on your phone the whole time?
Yeah, that's my partner. He thinks quality time is watching the TV. And I'm like, I'm not watching sports ball with you right now. This is not quality time for me. Okay, sorry to interrupt, but I'm just like passionate. I like this intentional time. And
it sounds like even within that, like y'all, so he's watching sports ball and thinks that's y'all spending time together. And so the 5, not talking shit about you, Gary Chapman. I don't even know if you're alive.
No, he died.
Oh, talk shit about him. He's very much alive. And
no, he died of cancer. I swear to God, he died.
He died recently?
Of cancer. I thought he died of cancer. Oh my God. Now I'm.
Oh my gosh, let's live.
I'm Googling.
Right
I'm
It's not that men are from Mars, women are from Venus person.
I'll finish your question.
Okay.
I promise I'll Google.
So the sports ball example, though, versus the 5 love languages, like quality time. But obviously it's missing some things because April's like, that's not what that is for me. So your book, The 18 Languages of Modern Love, could probably even find within that something beyond quality time and all these other pieces that you just named that I don't remember all the things that could, this is what this feels like for me. This is what this feels like for me, right? Yeah, it's not just we choose one. There's all these, there's many layers.
Yeah. I know there was part of the 5 love language idea is that we are all monolingual about love, which has not only is any human being who feels multiple feelings is like, okay, I don't think that's true, but there is actual like research to show that's out, like even using the 5, which are also just made up, no one has been able to kind of prove monolinguality with that too. So by default, if we think about like how people can be multilingual in so many ways and certainly monolingual, but not because they're wired that way. You can learn a new language if you're able to. It's really about, okay, yeah, what is sort of like the layered experience here for each person's experience of love, and also like what doesn't feel like love, just to get like information about it. And then you'll notice with like the 18, and there's way more than 18, like they're always coming up and floating in my head. Like
that's why you're writing another book.
Basically. And part of the reason, like part of the thing with the book is like, not only are you like quote unquote multilingual without maybe realizing it when it comes to things like love and other emotions, it's going to be different from person to person and relationship to relationship that you're in. So like, you're not just, oh good, I'm quality time, I'm set until I die, I don't need to know anything else about love or my relationships, or I have the key to lasting love now, which is how the 5 is marketed. You might notice like, okay, I need something very specific with sexual partners, fine. And maybe it depends on the sexual partner and their gender or like how old they are or where you live, who knows. But then you might notice like, well, with your friendships or with family or a neighbor or roommate, you need very different things. That makes sense to me very quickly. And then you think, okay, well, the stuff that helped me feel all these things when I was 25, do I expect that to stay the same when I'm 26, 30, 42? I hope not. And a lot of people do. They really do think that I'm going to put on my dating profile what my love language is, and I'm only going to reply or swipe right on people who have the same one, because once we're matched, we're good forever.
We're perfect.
And then you think, and here's my last sort of analogy to help this kind of sink in like these sort of nutshell ways. Assuming that we are going to experience or need or want love the same way throughout our entire life in all relationships is as logical and reasonable as expecting that we're going to feel and need and want and identify the same amount of happiness all day, forever and ever for the rest of our lives and all of our relationships. Like, can you imagine expecting yourself to feel happy at the same level forever, all the time? And if you dip below that, there's something wrong with you. And if all you're feeling is love or happiness all the time, it's not happy anymore. It's just neutral.
Yeah. Unless you're like, a Buddhist and you're trying to be like pretty neutral about everything. But Buddhists, it's not that they don't feel other feelings, it's how they navigate those feelings. So it still is. Fact. Most pussy owners need some sort of clitoral stimulation to orgasm, and many are not having orgasms from penetrative sex.
Say what?
I know, right? This is one of the many reasons why we are obsessed with OMG Yes. Not only has it changed our lives in the orgasm department, but I've been recommending OMG Yes to my clients for years, and it's completely changed their sex lives as well. OMG Yes features scientific research of real vulva owners, aka women, showing techniques to pleasure the pussy. They turn the research into tasteful, educational short videos, animated modules, and infographics for easy visual learning.
They call it OMG Yes for a reason, because OMG Yes is for anyone who wants to learn about pussy pleasure or take it to the next level. Whether you're a beginner or someone who wants to take your orgasms from good to mind-blowing, then you need to check out OMG Yes. They have 3 seasons: external pleasure, internal pleasure, and sex toys. It's not a subscription service, y'all, so you don't need to download a single thing. And it's great for partners who want to pleasure that pussy too. And for listeners of our show, OMGS is offering 10% off when you go to omgyes.com/shameless. Again, that's omgyes.com/shameless to receive 10% off unlimited access towards enhancing your pleasure power forever. Newsflash, everybody. We are picky about our lubes.
Can we say uber picky?
Yes, we can. And let me tell you all why Uber Lube is our absolute favorite lube ever. Uber Lube is a luxurious silicone lubricant that I want all over my body. Yes, it's designed for sex because it enhances intimacy while allowing you to still feel the skin-on-skin contact, but it feels so good that I want it everywhere. Uber Lube is long-lasting, leaves your skin feeling velvety smooth, and it's there when you want it, but then it dissipates when you're done.
Yes! Aside from using Uber Lube for all of my sexy sessions, and I use it all the time, I also use it for massages, for my hair frizzies, to prevent chafing, and it brings out the color of your beautiful tattoos. Thousands of doctors and therapists in the US alone are recommending Uber Lube to their patients because it's body-friendly, less likely to change the pH, and has vitamin E so it feels moisturizing on the skin. Uber Lube has no flavor or scent, which means it's also great for oral sex. And it comes in a beautiful glass bottle with a pump top, which means easy access to Pleasure Town.
Want to see why we think Uber Lube is the best lube in the world? Then go to uberlube.com and use discount code SHAMELESS to get 10% off and free shipping. Again, that's uberlube.com right now with code SHAMELESS for 10% off and free shipping. Okay, and an update for everyone. Gary Chapman is alive. Here's the thing. I read that book. I read like 7 books in like 6 months, and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People was the other one by Stephen Covey, and it's amazing. And I read those back to back, and Stephen Covey died of a bike accident.
Got it.
That's why I mixed them up. They're both white dudes that are like,
we're really disappointed in you. You're wrong and bad, and you did a terrible job. We're mad at you.
2016. It's been a long time.
It's hard to keep it all. Yeah. I mean, keep it all in our heads, let alone, sensical on paper. But the reason why I was like, I can't imagine he's dead is because he is as old as he is and has made
he's 86.
As much,
just look.
Yep. He's up there and he's still married to his wife. And when the 30th anniversary of the 5 Love Languages came out, a lot of the New York Times coverage was direct interviews with him at his current age. And that's when he started to sort of share a little bit more about the origin story of the 5 in a publication that like was accessible to all, not just like, a keynote he'd be doing at a Christian university or something.
And that's how 1992. That's when it was published. Cause I just looked up that too, because I needed some, I was far off with the cancer thing. I don't know why I thought that. Maybe
It happened.
It just was in my subconscious.
Is the origin story though? Was he sharing that it is related to religion in it?
No, he doesn't disclose. No one will ever disclose. It's really
that's why it has the under overtones. Like it's tricky. Like you don't. It doesn't say on the back of the book anything, and then all of a sudden, like you see something about God in there.
Yep, and also like the publisher is a Bible publisher. It's not like a regular publisher, and they do only Bibles, and then like his stuff and all of the offshoots. And again, it's like this isn't about being anti-religion. It's about non-disclosure, right? And how that harms people, especially anybody trying to recover from religious trauma. But like also for secular people or atheists or people who are like, don't fool me into reading something that like, I don't know, tells me this is the way that I'm going to be loved forever. And it is the secret to my marriage never ending, without also telling me that like the guy who made this stuff up based it all off of his own experience of marriage, and then what he observed Christian couples in his parish also doing.
Yeah, he is a pastor.
Made it from there.
Yeah, he's a pastor, and he's not known for liking scientific principles at all.
Oh, geez.
No, and he's also been he's openly homophobic. It's been scrubbed from the internet, but not the Wayback Machine. I've got all the screenshots.
The Wayback Machine exists, everyone.
Scrubbing the internet is a quite
fantastical. If people want to know a little bit more about sort of just like the breakdown of why the five themselves needed an update and an expansion, the book definitely breaks down sort of some of the issues, including, the issues of sexualizing touch or sexualizing love. And maybe that'll also help for some folks who are like, I don't see the issue yet, and that's totally okay. And part of the goal, I don't need anybody to feel the same way that I do, or my colleagues or whoever else. It's really about, I just think people deserve to know what is true about the things that they are consuming and using to navigate this very sticky, complicated world. So that's what my goal is, to just provide that information.
Which I think you do a great job. And I want to, we're going to switch gears in a moment. However, that book, I'm just going to call it the 18 Languages of Modern Love, that has a workbook that accompanies the book, right? And it's paperback. And then you can get that and work with, is it with partners or partner or?
Yeah, well, a lot of
individualized.
Totally. Well, so, I mean, I'll hold it up for the people who have like the video available. It's a bit thicker than like the regular book, but each page is an individual activity, and I can
read a lot of writing from here.
We
were just talking about this before we recorded.
Yeah, it's like all the things,
too much writing too.
Yeah, and it's just written out. I mean, among the things, I paid people of a variety of different like neurodiversities and abilities to just tell me, like, are these instructions clear? Like, does this make sense to you? Can you read this font? Can you read this size? Are these colors okay? And another thing that I wish, more folks were able to do, because it's like, if it works for me, great. But like, then I'm making something for myself and not necessarily other people outside of myself, And so it's really like meant to be a step-by-step process that people do by themselves for sure. And I have had people share with me that they've bought 2 workbooks, or they photocopy. I don't love that, but like, whatever. They photocopy the one they buy, and then they like hand the worksheet to someone they're dating. And like, they'll do these little activities together over a beer or a glass of wine, which is like intentional time, engaged experience, and personal growth. Side note.
I love that.
3 modern love languages at a time.
Or just buy 2 or 3 copies of the workbook.
Buy all of them, right? Like, sell me out. I would love it. It's just something that for some people, because it's very much more accepted to like do some of that personal growth work without just immediately going into the deep end and getting really, really deep and maybe really heavy. And they're able to then just kind of like take little steps into getting closer to what their goals might be. And if they can share that with a partner, that's already a green flag that their partner is down, and ready for it. And then they might the goal is to get more information to work with, not to like feel good or bad or better or even necessarily hopeful. Like I'm very much like, who knows what the future holds? Who even knows what things are going to be like for you and everyone else in 6 months, let alone 6 years?
Yeah.
But this is information you can add to like your dossier of evidence about like what you know about yourself and what you maybe know but don't always want to feel good about yourself, and just like add it to that pile. So you've got more to work with while you're just trying to find the people you want to build community with.
That's and I don't want to make this about us and our book, but the way we wrote it, it's a choose your own adventure, but it's choose your own pleasure path. It's something that you can access. You can read from front to back, or you can choose this one area of like, here's where my challenge is, or here's the goal that I want to work towards. And that applies now, but then maybe later in 6 months or a year, it's like, okay, what's the new thing? Because we're constantly changing. And it's more about sex, but there is relationships, communication skills, but similar concept, right? It's like we're constantly changing. It's okay, where am I at now? Maybe I'm in this new relationship. I'm having this challenge with my work business partner, and I need to learn about more about like that
right now.
No, not any.
Oh,
But I love that, and I think it's really realistic about as opposed to saying there is one way to be. Okay, so we want to. Our computer's being weird, but we are switching gears right now.
Weird shit happening with the communication.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the communication's good. There's just some weird stuff happening with our Zoom thing. But I want to ask you more about the Everyone Deserves Sex Ed. So you are the founder of Everyone Deserves Sex Ed, which is also EDSE, everyone. And this is a sex educator certification training program, an online education program, and you do some work with like parent-child education as well. So first, before we talk a little more about that, what is the current state of sex education, speaking to the United States? This is 2024, everyone, anal August, and I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I like actually have literal stats around like laws for sex ed and state to state. Like I use this information a lot to help give people context around like why do so many of us not know anything. And
I just love you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Which kind of love? Which are the 18?
You're better than Siri. I just love you. Okay, sorry. That's
She
all.
loves stats too, but yeah.
No, it's
Gemini.
so
Gemini's
useful.
another one that
Oh,
I
yeah.
think but yes, okay.
Misunderstood sun sign. So anyway, the stats we have right now are based off of August of 2023. We'll have them updated again. There's a nonprofit called the Guttmacher Institute that tracks a lot of policy making related to things like sex ed and HIV education. So as of August of last year, 39 states and Washington, D.C. mandated some kind of sex ed and or HIV education. So that means all the other states, the like 10 or 11, no law at all requiring any kind of sex ed, but it gets worse than this. Because of those 39 and Washington, D.C., 29 of them require that abstinence be stressed, which analogy time is like teaching driving by emphasizing staying home. It's like you can talk
Seriously?
about not driving,
Yeah,
but you also
a great
need
analogy. Oh,
Yeah.
like you got to also talk about driving because it's driving school education anyway.
Because people are probably going to drive at some point too anyway.
Oh,
So, you know.
on. That's great. That's the best analogy I have ever heard.
Pretend like
Just
you'll never
wait.
drive.
I'm probably going to use that later. Okay,
Do it.
I will credit you.
Please do. So of those 39 in Washington, D.C., 19 of them require emphasizing sexual activity only within marriage, which is like teaching driving by emphasizing driving cars you legally own.
Okay, wait.
it.
So 29,
I like
you
that.
said 29 focus on abstinence.
They
and then-
require stressing abstinence.
Yeah.
Okay, and then 39 are not having sex before marriage. 39
No,
states?
so
oh,
39 and Washington, D.C. in general require some kind of sex ed.
okay, got it, got
And
it.
so
And
the
within
other,
that
so you're saying the
pile-
other 11,
Okay.
0 laws require
No
any
law.
sex ed.
They don't require it, but requiring sex ed, the bar is so low that requiring sex ed doesn't mean jack. It could
Yeah.
mean I'm requiring sex ed to talk about things like, you know, a man with a beard in the sky judging you for touching your penis. Like there's no law against that in a general sex ed mandate from state to state. Like the states themselves have very particular unique policies. And some actually have the same kinds of policies because these initial bills are written by one or two organizations that write like Mad Lib fill in the blank type of bills and then send them to different legislators to fill in the blank for their state and their name. So that's how we got things like the various bathroom bills and the anti-trans bills that are now laws that are all basically the same. And a lot of it also the anti-abortion or abortion restriction laws all came from the same source and have just been sort of copied, pasted from state to state.
what state, Anne, sorry, but what states can we commend as doing a decent job with sex education? Because I know my friend's kid, remember in Portland, or my friend that I grew up with her, and she has 2 kids, and her kids, they go to school in Portland, and one is 8 and one is 6. And we had our shameless sex bag, and the little boy who was 8 said, "I know what that is." And I said, "You know what is?" And he said, "That word, sex, we just learned about it in school." And I was like, "What did you learn?" And then he talked about the pleasure piece a little bit, not much. And his mom was like very proud. And I was like, well, so I just want to know if it's obviously cities are all different, but are there any states that we can be like, wow, they're really setting the bar higher than?
So you're speaking, so the 39 that requires some form of sex ed, and then 29 it's
require abstinence.
And then the lower one with that
19 required emphasizing sex only within marriage.
Okay.
19.
So so what are the few that are actually
hopefully Oregon?
Well, what I can say is I don't have access to full state policy, state to state, but California does a pretty good job. Massachusetts has done a pretty good job. Oregon has done a pretty good job. And I know that this doesn't mean it's the only 3, but those are the ones I can confidently say have some policy that's been pretty forward thinking. Like California was the first state in general to change the legal definition of consent from like no means no to yes means yes, which again, the bar is low. We need more than yes means yes. But like that was pretty novel for a state many, many years ago to actually make that into law, which then made it into sex ed curricula approved by the state. So
thank you, by the way. Thank you. I'm glad to know at least that some humans out there are getting decent sex education.
It's happening. We're not going to
say it's not the best. And
well, here's the thing.
It's better than nothing.
We got to start somewhere, right? Like, so there are definitely some schools that will bring in their own sex ed or outside sex educator, depending on funding. And there are, regardless of the state you're in, some individual parents and caregivers also are sort of banding together and bringing in private sex ed, either for their own kids or for maybe a community group. I've had a couple reach out and have sex ed classes with me through EDC to supplement whatever they're getting in school, if they're getting anything. So we're not totally SOL if we happen to be living in a state like Florida or Texas. It just means there's usually more expense and more effort involved, but also thank goodness we've got access to a variety of kinds of books that can be a really good starting point for parents and caregivers who are worried about what's in their school, and also for parents and caregivers who are homeschooling. And they're like, who's going to handle the sex ed part? We can't, like, we're not qualified to do this shit. So there's definitely hope. And if people want more of the like sort of stat stuff, I've got more about just sort of like how even in 2024, it's pretty dismal. But there's never been a point where like school sex ed has been like, ooh, this is pretty good. Like we didn't start actually having sex ed as like a thing that could be systemized and put into schools until like early in the 1900s, 1920s. The idea was we should probably have something in school. And from there, it only kind of occurred to folks around like the sexual revolution for that sex ed should also include the concept of feeling good and not just babies and STIs. Yeah. And then starting from the 80s until now, in part, thanks Reagan, we had a lot of political pearl clutching and attacking on the idea of sex ed being something that was a little bit more like, yeah, people also have sex because it feels good and also for these other reasons. And so we want to help you navigate this. And that's why we started getting abstinence only or abstinence stressed becoming the norm and federal funded norm that then, depending on the school or the state, they had to get what they could get funding for. And so that's what they put in the schools, you know? So it's complicated and layered, but that's why like organizations like Everyone Deserves Sex Ed exists. It's why sex educators like the three of us exist. Like there's a lot of work that can be done outside of the school system. And the hard thing is just to help other people learn that people like us do exist and that there are alternatives and other options.
Yeah.
Amy and I are both cracking up because we have our noise canceling headphones on and my dog is next to me snoring.
You can hear it through
and I'm like, we can hear it through our headphones. And I'm like, I hope you can't hear that.
I can't hear it, but I want to.
Okay. It's really cute.
It's not that he finds his topic. He's not a stats guy, you know? So
I'm not offended.
Oh my God. The snore. I'm like, if she hears
he's like, I'll listen when it's not stats.
His head is buried in the pillow next to me. And he's like, I was listening and I was like, oh my God, legend, stop. He never snores either. All right. Amy has a question, but I wanted you to know what we were cracking up.
You kind of already commented on this a little bit, but so I'm curious about how does everyone deserve sex ed? Again, everyone EDSC to keep it easier for your brain. EDC. How does everyone deserve sex ed fit into all of this? Like what makes everyone deserve sex ed, EDC different from other sex education trainings?
Yeah. Well, so partly the sex ed certification is literally available to anybody who is like, I don't know fucking anything about this shit, and I want to benefit my family or community or do a better job at my job, or really anyone who's like, I need something because I don't know where else to get it. So it's a training that literally anybody from recent high school grads, we had an 18-year-old take our most recent certification because they made a zine in high school to like be sex ed materials for their friends. It was just like, oh my God, I love you. Come all the time. Like, hell yeah, I'm so flattered. We have clergy come in who are like, whoa, I don't know what to think, but I do know that this shit is making like people in my community like not want to live anymore. And that's a problem and definitely goes against my religious beliefs. So I need to figure out how to talk about things like gender or love and relationships.
Good for them for taking action.
Right?
Yeah. That's awesome. And it's heavy.
We've got therapists who are like, yeah, my academic training was fucking useless when it came to things like sex outside of heteronormativity and like pregnancy prevention and monogamy and all the kinds of stuff. So they're like, I need to supplement my existing, training. We also have well-seasoned sex educators who just, because they know that they need to, are just re-upping their knowledge, throughout their careers. And then we've got people who are like, I'm just a parent and I live in Galveston, Texas. And I have always been the parent that like my kids and their friends have come to for help. And so I want to up my game a little and be an even better, safer resource for them. So there's no prerequisite for like who's permitted and allowed in. And it's not academic because it's academic trainings are useless for regular people who want to be doing on the ground work. Yeah. So it's really about like, here's what's true about this shit. Here is a reframe that makes it expansive and inclusive of all the stuff that you might not even realize other materials aren't inclusive or expansive of. And we're going to help you figure out like, how do I answer this kind of a question or how do I explain this concept without getting overwhelmed or giving too much information. And then also like we teach communication tools and facilitation skills and things to look out for when you're trying to engage with other people. And so it's a really like encompassing, comprehensive training that also doesn't require people spend like a year or two doing it because some of us don't have that kind of time. And so it's also completely live. There's nothing passive about it. And that's partly because most of the trainings that are available are pre-recorded and there's literally nothing wrong with that. But I know there are some people, myself included, who don't learn very well from looking at a screen and not talking to anyone or practicing anything. Yeah. And then suddenly you have to like write a paper or do a quiz or something. And it's like, oh my God, I would be SOL if that was my only option. So
that's Paige who works with us as a social media. And we're going to, send, anyways, we were told about all these trainings. You could do this one right now. This one's online. She's like, no, I work better with people. And also she wants to work with people,
Director of marketing. Too,
director of marketing. Yes. Getting the term, but she wants to actually engage with people. And so, that's awesome.
Yeah. I appreciate that about your program too. And there's only 2 sessions a year?
Right now, yeah, because we've changed the schedule to make it even more accessible for people because it's on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And so instead of having them be like consecutive weeks, it's every other week. So it does extend it. Maybe you'll still be done probably within like 3 months, which is still really, really freaking fast. But it also means like you have like the longest we'll be in class together is from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So you have the rest of your day. You can find childcare. Your kid can also sit with you. We have people who have their kids just in the background doing homework.
That's Pacific time, right?
Pacific time.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. West Coast. And And then you have the next weekend where if you need to do the family stuff or you need to clean the house or whatever else we have to do on the weekends, because they're precious, you can. And then you just be prepared for the next weekend to be in class with us. And I know like I'm biased, but I've been teaching this since 2019, sometimes 3 times a year since 2019. And it's so fun. Like it's still so fun. And I have the attendees who are just like, this feels weird because I'm glad this is going to come to an end soon, but I'm starting to feel sad knowing that day 13 is coming and we're on day 9 and I only have 4 more days or 3 more days to like be with all of you. And I know they're not doing it just to like make me feel good because I don't need people to, think I'm fun or think it's fun really. But what they share ultimately is they're in a space where they feel really comfortable to like really be their full selves and ask all the questions. And they know that there are people there who share similar values that maybe others in their community think are weird or bad and sinful or negative. And so instead of feeling kind of like the odd one out or, the weirdo, they're in a group of fellow odd ones out and weirdos who are like, yeah, I want to go to a training that isn't just going to be saying like orgasms are amazing, have one a day, but also like, here's how this works. And what if orgasm wasn't the only thing we talked about? What if joy and fun and pleasure and play was part of it? And we're also going to be talking about the stuff from a justice lens. So it's like, here's how to talk about this. And here's why, because here's who is left out when we use language that is only in the textbooks, or here's who's left out if we're only referring to sex as penises in a vagina. And, here's the other things that are left out just that benefit everybody if you're only talking about this topic from this one perspective. And so people also then start feeling way more confident and comfortable and shifting out of the imposter syndrome stuff or like the fear of like, oh, I don't want to say the wrong thing or leave someone out. It's like, you're always going to, so let's move on from that fear and instead like get some skills that make you feel a little bit more connected to it all.
I love that the why teachings, right? The why instead of this is the language we use. And sometimes that's when you talk about the normies or the mainstream folks, they get flustered or upset, or it's a lot of cis white dudes. Okay. And I'm not condemning or saying anything's wrong with all dudes. There's a lot of
that's why women feel the same way too. Why should I have to learn how to do a way to speak?
It's not even a gendered thing. It's just my mom, for instance, is she gets really confused. And I think teaching the why, it's like, hey, this analogy with the driving and then the abstinence being like never leaving your house and learning how to drive. That's so good. So after people finish EDC, and you kind of talked about who can do that, right? And then all the personal benefits that they may receive and probably will receive. What do folks do with this after? Obviously, if you're maintaining knowledge, which I would love to do, that's one thing. But what about the other folks out there?
Yeah, so we don't always track every single person's trajectory. So I can go by what people have shared with me after graduating. Some people are just adding it to the things on their resume so that they feel more official. And that's understandable. We're all conditioned in very particular ways. You're official without a certificate as well. I just want folks to hear, what does official even mean? But anyway, so some people just use it to feel more comfortable and better about their work. Others use it because they know that they can't get credentialed by some of the exclusionary organizations that require, for example, a bachelor's degree to even walk through the door, which is like so classist and also like racist and sexist and varieties of things, like hugely problematic. So they're like, this is the thing that is actually going to maybe get people to take me more seriously when they see that I've done a particular kind of training that is known for a certain kind of work and gives me an option when I know that I don't have any choice to go anyplace else. So that's also something that people use just for legitimacy and reaching out for jobs related to sex and sexuality. And then some folks use it because they want to build something for themselves and they want there to be some kind of like consistent knowledge among the people that they're working with. And so like they will go themselves and then they'll send a couple of employees or they'll send a couple of colleagues. And the goal being eventually everyone's kind of like on the same page about stuff. And you don't have to worry about the person who's in charge of marketing using language that is very antiquated and actually hurts people or dehumanizes people because they took the same training, And so there's that. And then there's people like the parents or the clergy members or some of them are in like nonprofit world, and they're just like, I need this so that I can then start to like drip this information out to other places or other people that I'm working with, because this is the thing I have the most control over in terms of change making, that sort of incremental shift versus trying to like go all the way to the top and change like how the laws are written. Like there are organizations that do things like that, but if that worked, we would have been fine back in this, starting from the 70s.
It's obviously not working. Yeah.
This Free Speech Coalition does do a lot of incredible work within.
A lot of lobbying work.
Which is amazing. And getting legislation written and rewritten it's a big feat. And this isn't a bureaucratic thing that you and I and Amy are talking about. This is kind of I think it's a human thing, right? And obviously bureaucracies are involved in all of our fucking day-to-days, but I'm really grateful for this offering. And yeah.
And I looked at your website, the Etsy website, and your teaching staff is just, I mean, it's a lot of humans, but you can see all these different, just looking at it and you're like, wow, this is a wealth of experiences and perspectives. And it's not just like, here's our 4 teachers, it's just extensive and impressive. And I'm sure that changes, right? And so you're next year, this is 2024. I know that you have a spring offering and a fall offering. So this is going to be a multi-layered question because we do have to wrap up and let everyone go and carry on with the days. How can people learn more about Etsy and sign up for Etsy for next year, 2025 and beyond? Also, how and where can people buy your book? How can they work with you? Because I know you work personally with people as well. Give us all the things.
Yeah, well, everyonedeservessexed.com is definitely the hub for all of the Etsy stuff and the certification work. And every session has some of the same basic educators, but we have about 10 that we have along with me in each session. And you can see a list of people who were in the summer session if people want an idea of who they are. And then Hodder-Shipp.com is where you can find out about me. There's a link there to the Modern Love Languages and a separate website where you can like buy the book and stuff. And the modernlovelanguages.com is where you can see the book, see the workbook. And there's also some relationship coaching offerings for people who are like really wanting to kind of like dive in and work with me directly around like, how do I apply this stuff to my life or my relationship?
And then when are the next, so you said summer session, because it's August when we're recording this. So is there anything left in 2024 if folks are interested, or is it?
2024 just ended actually,
okay,
but in 2025, we have the spring session starting March 1st. And then the fall session, let me look at my paper, starts.
Was it October?
September 13th,
September, yeah.
2025. Yeah.
So people, and you do close those things. It's not open-ended in
right.
It's
sold out.
It sold out last time.
Yeah.
They do tend to sell out, though 2023, we didn't have sellouts. The maximum size for the class is around 15. And
that's amazing.
It's one of the other reasons why people like it.
Yeah.
3 of them are reserved for scholarship people. So there are basically 12 application spots that are available in each session. So it is something that you do want to sign up probably as soon as you're able to, just in case it does sell out, but it'll never be any bigger than 15. And if it's bigger than 15, it just means there was some sort of special exception had to be made for some reason, but probably 20 would be like the serious cutoff.
And I know you can pay in installments, which I think is really cool. And if we get asked, Amy and I get emails pretty regularly about how to become a certified sex educator, how to enhance even people at Swan Medical, where we've had Dr. Castillo and Remy on the show and on our book about hormone therapies and intimate wellness. And some of their office folks want to expand their knowledge on sexual health and wellness. And we recommended Etsy. So if you are interested in what Anne is curating, really, please check out everyonedeservessexed.com. All of the links will be in our show notes, and we definitely will have Anne back because there's just not enough time to cover all of your knowledge. And if people want those stats, meaning April Lampert probably right here, she probably wants some. I love stats so much because it feeds the machine of people knowing the numbers and where I love stats and numbers. And every time I'm guested on any mainstream shows, they love the stats. So I love stats, and I'll credit you. And I think Amy sometimes hates stats, and then they always change, and sometimes you love them.
I don't hate stats. They just won't stick in my brain.
Yeah.
I hear it. I'm like, that's interesting. It'll go in one ear, out the other.
It's interesting. You remember like people's authors' names and like book page numbers. And I'm like,
only if it's meaningful.
It's really
Right.
incredible.
Otherwise, I'm like,
Brains are weird, but I'll send you, April, I'll send you the actual like slides that I have that have the driving analogy under each one because it really helps.
Is this the gifting love language? I'm just kidding.
It's bestowing for sure and shared beliefs, I would say.
You just got bestowed with some shared beliefs.
I'm going to buy this book and I'm going to recommend, Amy and I have, one of our therapists is the same. I think it would be great for her to incorporate some of this knowledge too. I'm not going to try to should my therapist, but
I'm seeing her tomorrow. I got to think about my own shit for a while.
Yeah, well, here you go.
I got my own problems.
And Hodder-Shipp, everyone, and Ship with 2 Ps. CSE, please, if you haven't rated us, rate us, review us. What that does is help more folks find folks like Ann Hodder-Shipp and all of the incredible guests that we have on our show. And it also makes us feel good sometimes, which we need a little boost. We love boosting you all. Help us boost ourselves because it gets, it's hard out there. It's hard out there sometimes in this sex education field. And Amy and I, we have not missed a Tuesday in 7+ years. And this is a free resource for you. So like us, buy the stuff that we talk about on our show because we only pick products and services and things and people and guests that we really believe in and love. Sometimes we've had, different relationships with some of our guests.
There was some of them were like,
yeah, we're like, and we tend to not edit things out unless, my dog's farts or snores too loud. That usually stays in too. All right, you all, we will see you next Tuesday. And Amy, I love you and love you. Ciao for now, everyone.
To learn more, go to shamelesssex.com.
And for 15% off some of our favorite sex toys, use code SHAMELESSSEX at purepleasureshop.com.